Hi, I'm Taylor and welcome back to Roam Away From Home. Today is all about the Eras Tour floor experience, specifically what it's like to have the GA floor experience. As of today, I have attended the Eras Tour 4 times. Once in Arizona with assigned floor seating, twice in Portugal with GA floor, one from the VIP perspective and one non-VIP, and in Madrid from VIP level section 500 seats. You might also count the 2 times that we Tay-gated outside of the Denver Stadium as well. I know that you might have anxieties about seeing Taylor Swift from a floor perspective, and I want to share why it is amazing, as well as give tips for you to have the best experience you can. My husband Mike and I have attended over 1,000 concerts outside of the Taylor Swift universe, and most of those experiences have been GA floor pit pass experiences. Personally, it's my favorite way to experience a concert because yes, it can be stressful if you're not prepared, but once you kind of know what you're getting into, I think it's the best way to experience the Eras Tour. One of the top questions that we receive over and over and over again are, what are the bag policies for my stadium? Stadium policies are dictated by the stadium and Taylor's team, not just one or the other, which means that every single stadium is going to be different. This is where following the specific stadium's pages and the tour organizers is critical, because I cannot possibly advise you. Many times these stadium policies were not released until a couple days before the event. What I can say is that the bag policies range. Sweden had a 0 bag policy, meaning you were not allowed to bring in any bags. Portugal and Spain, they were pretty lax on the bag policies. You're allowed to bring in a tote, the tote that comes in the VIP package, the Taylor Swift tote, that was allowed. And honestly, I saw bags bigger. They said only 2 compartments for purses. I saw people with many compartments. They were pretty relaxed about it. And because of that, you're just gonna have to pay attention to your specific stadium, your specific tour organizer, and really educate yourself on the stadium policies. Even if you follow the policies exactly. For example, Portugal allowed 50 centiliter plastic water bottles, the squishy kind, and night 1, everyone's water bottles were thrown out. You're provided with a cup, but everyone's waters were thrown out. So even though they said they allowed water bottles, they actually didn't in practice. Some entry gates did not allow any battery packs for their phones. Some did. And in our line, specifically for floor, they threw out or put to the side every single battery pack that people brought for their phones. And in this case, there was no clear policy posted about battery packs, so people just assumed they would be allowed in. As tour continues, most stadiums are allowing battery packs. It's kind of a safety issue. You need to get home somehow. If they do allow battery packs, then woohoo, you're lucky, because it just seems to be pretty random. Well, throughout the whole Eras Tour, I recommend ear protection. It is one of those things that you should have if you're going to the Eras Tour, absolutely. I talk about this a lot more, and I talk about comfort items in general for the Eras Tour, things that you can have to make sure that you have a more comfortable experience in terms of like colored glasses, earplugs, like all the different layers, all that kind of stuff. I talk about it in my other videos, so you can watch that if you'd like. But especially if you have kids, make sure that you wear ear protection. Many adults were covering their ears because it was too loud for them. So for a kid, it is definitely even louder. And that brings me to the kids section of the floor experience. Should you bring your kids to Eras Tour floor? The answer is, it depends, of course. Depends on your kid, depends on their age, depends on their stamina, lots of things. But one thing I will say is the number one thing to check is your child even allowed on floor? Is your child even allowed at the Eras Tour? Some countries have age restrictions, and this is due to the decibel ratings of the concerts. If the decibel rating is too high, children will not be allowed at that concert, and it's to protect their ears. So you have to check your stadium's specific requirements. On top of the general, can kids come or not come to the Eras Tour, some stadiums have specific rules for floor. It could be that they require an adult to be present with the minors if they're on floor. It could be that children under 14 are not allowed on floor. The policies absolutely depend by country and by stadium. So if you're planning on bringing kids, please do your research in advance. We heard many people traveling from the US and did not know that these were restrictions, and they ended up showing up not knowing their kid would not be allowed to the show. So absolutely check any age restrictions that might occur for floor and overall for the Eras Tour concert. If you're going to have kids, you absolutely can take them on floor. Honestly, I hear all these things saying, no, absolutely not, no, no, no. I would say that there is an age range. The youngest ones were probably 6 or 7 years old. I talked to many parents on floor and asked them about their experience so that I can give you some actually insightful information since we don't have kids. And basically they said that there's an age range of kids, right? Like they usually had more than one kid. And they said that they would recommend the minimum age that you bring a kid for floor experience is 8, maybe 7 if they're pretty like high endurance 7-year-old. Many of the parents had younger kids at home, 5 and younger, and they chose not to bring them. And they were very, very happy with that decision because it is a lot of standing. It's a lot of long lasting conditions with lots of stimulation, lots of people around, lots of dancing, crowds, and mostly the standing. Many parents were there, and what they did was they hung out towards the back of the floor. So if you're front right, front left, you'll have a nice little section of the back of the floor, which is closer to the surprise song set. They'll have barricades. Most of those barricades that were set up there were taken over by parents with kids ranging from ages 7 to 10. I would say was about the range of the people hanging out in the back. And I really did not see kids that were much younger than that. I think there was a 5-year-old, but truly like most of the kids were 7 plus. Same thing for the backfield. If you are bringing a child, there will be the opportunity for you to sit along a barricade towards the back where they have some sound equipment, lighting equipment, the towers. You can kind of form a little area around there. It was actually the best thing for these kids because it was super cute. They made friends with all the other little Swifties and exchanged bracelets, and they were talking about their favorite songs. Like truly, memories were made. If you're gonna bring a kid with over-ear protection, one thing that was really cute is that a lot of people decorated their earmuffs so that it was a cute, fun addition to their outfit. And it made it so that the kids were excited to wear their hearing protection. So a little tip for you if you're gonna be bringing a mini Swiftie to the floor. What I don't recommend if you're bringing a small child is trying to go extremely close. Trying to go really close to the diamond, trying to go really close to the front of the backfield area. It's just not safe because not only is it not safe like for your kid might get overwhelmed and you might not be able to get out as quickly as you want. What happens is when you're a super congested crowd, like it gets more congested the closer you get to the stage. Your kid is not going to be able to see because of the way the barriers are and the people. The angle will not be good enough so like your kid won't see anything if you're closer to the stage unless you put them on your shoulders. And what happens though is when your kid's down on the ground, people might not see your child. Like this truly happens and accidentally bump them with your elbow on their head, something like that, spill a drink on them. And I'm not saying this happened like, oh, it was happening all over the place or anything like that. That's from our experience of over 1,000 concerts. We've seen that happen many times. So the closer you are, the worse view it is going to be for your kid. And also the more likely that they will accidentally get stepped on, spilled on, elbowed, something like that. If you do have kids though, and you want to put them on your shoulders, some people will give you, some side eye for it. What we noticed is for the kid's favorite song, they would put the kid on the shoulders and then take them down. That's the best way to go about it. I think when you're explaining to your kid what their experience will be like on floor, it is important to share with them that they might not be able to see Taylor very clearly on the stage just because they're so short. But when you're further back, they will have more of a chance to see her. She also does have big screens. Depending on the stadium, there could be screens surrounding the entire upper level. There could be at least one screen really high up. So if you explain to your child that we're going to Taylor Swift, but you might not actually see her, but there will be TV screens that you can watch and see her from there, that's a great way to explain it and prepare your child for what their experience will be like. They're gonna have fun. People were really respectful of kids there. And so I wouldn't be as worried about it being an unsafe experience for your child. I would just make sure that you don't line up super early, that you have plenty of food and water for your kid, hearing protection, and you stay more towards the back of the floor. But I am telling you, these kids had the most amazing time. Like, absolutely, I would bring an 8-year-old too. I have a niece and nephew, and at the time that we have been going to the Eras Tour, they have ranged in age basically from 4 and 6 to 5 and 7, soon to be 6 and 8, you know, like they've grown up, you know, 2 years in that time. And I would not bring the youngest one to the Eras Tour floor. I would bring her to seats, but I know her stamina level and she would poop out for sure, especially when she was a little bit younger, like when the start of the Eras Tour was happening. My nephew has more energy than anybody I have ever met in my entire life, and he could absolutely be all in on the Eras Tour 100%. Like, he would be able to be on floor, he would have a good time, he'd be dancing, as long as I set his expectations, like you might not see her super close, like all of that, like he would absolutely be fine. The younger one, she has that, you know, that timer where all of a sudden and so if your kid has that timer, also I talked to a lot of parents, and many of the parents said, I fully am aware that we might have to leave before midnight, and that's okay with me. So I think that that's another perspective to take, is like, know that if your kid poops out, you might have to go home, and that's fine. You have a better likeliness of having a decent view of Taylor, the screen, and everything from front right, front left. You also have a higher chance of having actual seats that are behind the stage accessible to you from those 2 different floor areas. I do know a couple parents that have VIP tickets, floor tickets with their kids, and they were able to be right up on the barricade, and they actually had a great time, and it was absolutely worth it to them. I think that's more of the exception than the norm. The majority of parents, they told me that they were much happier in the back. So that's just it. You know your child, you know how often your child needs to go to the bathroom. So you're gonna have to make that choice on your own. But just know, like, the majority of people I've spoken to, they definitely liked having their kids in the back area, so the kids had some space to run around, dance, listen, make other Swiftie friends, all of that, and not be so crowded. If I had kids and I was taking them to the Eras Tour, I personally would not do VIP and I would not do early entry. That is just my perspective of the oldest of 10 children and someone who has been around kids my whole life and been to 1,000 concerts. Is like, I would choose to enter the stadium later rather than earlier. The way that the toilets work on floor is going to be different depending on your section. So with Portugal, backfield, we didn't have access to flushing toilets. It was all porta potties with no toilet paper and no hand sanitizer. So if you're gonna bring something into the show, I recommend bringing a little thing of hand sanitizer just in case this happens to you, or just actually some paper towels or napkins that you can bring with you into the show that you can use in case there is no toilet paper available.
So I just sat in someone's vomit in the porta potty. I didn't see it, and I sat down and I got up and I was like, why? I didn't miss. Why am I wet? And it was someone's vomit. I sat in someone's vomit. So that happened.
So it was front right and front left had access to full flushing toilets, concession stands, full concession stands inside the stadium. The backfield area had only portable concession stands, so they sold more limited selection. There were more options if you were front right and front left stage. This will change depending on the stadium setup. Some stadiums might actually have better access to amenities on the backfield. It really just depends on how the stadium set up their barricades and whether or not they are letting people from floor up into the stands to get concessions. In Portugal, we were not allowed to leave the floor at all. And we tried when we were trying to get espresso and we were denied. So we could not leave the floor to go into any seats. We had no access to any seats. Front right, front left stage, they actually did have access to seats as well. There were some seats that were slightly behind the stage and they had a great view there. We saw many people with kids that would actually take little breaks there when the kids got overstimulated. And then they had full access to the concessions and toilets. So it really depends on your stadium. I would prepare for the least amount of amenities if you are on floor. You will have access to water, you will have access to alcohol and some food. You may or may not have access to flushing toilets, but you will have access to a toilet. And that is what I would plan for when you're deciding what to bring to the Eras Tour. The timing of bathroom breaks that I recommend if you're doing floor, I recommend going to the toilet right when you enter the stadium. As many times as you want before the opener, and especially as many times as you want before Paramore. It is easier to save your spot if you go with a group of people. If you're solo, if you make friends around you so that they can kind of hold your spot while you're going to the toilet before the shows start. If you have to go to the toilets between Paramore and Taylor Swift, I recommend going the last song of Paramore or the last 2 songs of Paramore. It sucks to miss it, but I did notice that the lines for the bathroom were so small compared to right after Paramore. If you are going to go to the bathroom right after Paramore before Taylor Swift, then I would book it to the toilets as fast as you can and then go back. It will be definitely harder to get back to your spot in between Paramore and Taylor Swift, but if you have to use the toilet, you gotta use the toilet. If you have floor, also consider how much touristic activities you do ahead of time. You're gonna need a lot more stamina to enjoy floor than you will if you had seats, because you can't really sit down and take a break during the show. So I would recommend against doing tourist activities the day of your show, especially if you're going for more than one night. A lot of people I know, they had 2 days of floor tickets and they either gave away their day 2 floor tickets, upgraded to seats, or sold them for a super cheap price. If you do not have tickets yet to Taylor Swift to see the Eras Tour, then don't worry. If you want to go to a certain show in a certain city, just go to that city, go there, experience it. You can hang out outside the stadium if you want, but also Taylor's team releases last minute tickets, and they've done this for every show. And for Portugal and for Spain, tickets were being released right up into the event. And some of these tickets were better than people who have had their tickets for a year, and they have a range of prices. For both Spain and Portugal, the prices range from 55 euros for an obstructed view seat to 600 euros for a VIP box experience. So there are always tickets released, and typically, like I said, people that went night 1 and they had tickets to night 2 floor, or if you're doing a multi-day run in that city, by the end of the run, like by, let's say she's doing 4 nights, by night 4, you will see a lot of tickets for sale for the floor seats. And it's not because they suck. It's not because it's a bad experience. It is truly because people are too tired to do multiple floor nights in a row, or they get a little worried after hearing some people's floor experiences. The whole purpose of this video is to help you have the best time at the Eras Tour, and our entire goal is to help you have a good time, because I truly believe when more people are prepared, whether it's mentally, physically, whatever, when they're prepared for the show and they know what they're getting into, the experience once you're there is just pure bliss. It's like you gotta prep to get there, and then once you're there, pure happiness, pure joy, pure bliss, less stress. And that is why we make these tips videos. And so I really hope they helped you, and I hope you're getting super hyped for your show. If you already went to the Eras Tour, would love to hear which one you went to in the comments. Or if you have a show coming up, we'd love to hear which one you're going to too, and maybe we'll see each other at a future show. If you want to see some more Eras Tour guides, or you want to see how I was able to travel to another country without staying a night in a hotel or hostel and did it super budget Eras Tour, that video is coming around the corner too. We have some exciting festivals coming up. We're covering a lot of really cool music, events, venues. We're sharing more tips for festivals, all of it. So if you like music and travel, and honestly, why are you on this channel if you don't? Then subscribe for more. Thanks, guys.